I miss the old Kanye. Chop up the soul Kanye. I hate the new Kanye. The always rude Kanye.
The old Kanye versus the new Kanye is a topic that's been discussed for a while, and even more so after the Life of Pablo song that mentions the terms. At the root of this discussion is the fact that Kanye himself has always been at the center of controversy, whether it's this
being the most tragic loss of all.
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
or this.
I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
Or even this.
I want to go to Africa. I'm standing up and I'm telling you, I am Warhol. You ain't got the answers. You ain't got the answers. You ain't got the answers, Sway.
But he's also always been at the center of some of the biggest innovations and culture shifts in hip-hop and now in fashion. The internet community can't really decide when the old Kanye became the new Kanye. Some say it was after graduation, others say it was after My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, still others think it happened after Yeezus. They imagine he was corrupted by something, whether it was the death of his mother, or starting to get into fashion, or marrying Kim Kardashian. The truth is, Kanye never really changed. He just found a new way of dealing with his fame and his relationship with the media. The first place I'm going to look at to explore this idea is his moving performance of 808s and Heartbreak at the Hollywood Bowl in 2015. To put this into perspective, this is after the VMA incident, after his interview with Sway, after the release of My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy and Yeezus, so it's during a period of time when many would consider him the new Kanye. It's a good place to analyze his statements and lyrics. I want to specifically look at one song called Pinocchio Story. There are no studio recorded versions of this song, which is pretty rare for Kanye to do, yet a live version of it from Singapore is included on the 2008 album. But every time Kanye performs this song, he starts the same way, but changes the lyrics in the middle and the end, and he makes them a response to what's happening at the time. In this case, he makes them a response to all the criticism he was receiving at the time. There's a lot to analyze about this performance, and it gives us all the explanation we need as to why Kanye seems different now, why he doesn't seem to care about his public image, and why he acts out so much. The brilliant performance starts with Kanye walking out from among the orchestra members, encased in a full-body cast. He almost walks robotically, carrying himself leg by leg forward, until he reaches a spot in front of a white staircase, onto which his shadow reflects. This is the image for the rest of the performance, and I'll break it down first, before getting into the lyrics and the motions that correspond to them. The image here is an allegory for the life of a celebrity, and I'll help you see that by breaking down all the parts. When you look at the shadow Ye makes from this angle, it looks like almost a perfect silhouette of himself reflected onto the staircase. This view of the shadow can symbolize the way that the public sees celebrities. Following that reasoning, the cast that covers Kanye's body and face can represent the tight control that the industry has over Kanye, in that it keeps him moving the way he wants to move, makes him robotic, and also that it keeps Kanye in this normal figure in the view of the public. The key here is that you can't tell he's in the cast, under this control, and not able to be his real self, just from looking at the shadow, and this therefore represents how the public can't tell what his condition is, because his being docile is confused for being normal. With this allegorical staging in place, the lyrics of the part that stays the same, and the very different concluding freestyle have new meaning. Now let's dive into the lyrics, where we'll find our real answers, starting with the part of the song that always stays the same. He starts by making the point that no amount of money or material possessions can get him out of his situation, isolating the problem as one that comes out of fame and wealth. He therefore makes the point that nothing he could buy can make him feel real again, and make him get back in touch with his true self. He ties this idea into the story of Pinocchio, who also just wanted to be real. Then Kanye says,
"The funny thing is, Pinocchio lied, and that's what kept him from it. I tell the truth, and I keep running. It's like I'm looking out there, trying to find something. I look on the TV, and I see me, and see nothing."
Here he furthers the analogy in comparison with Pinocchio by pointing out that lying is what keeps one from becoming real. He then establishes that that's not the whole story, and that it's harder for him, because he tries to tell the truth, and he's still out of touch with his real self and the rest of the world. The next few lines highlight how the fame is the piece that separates his story from Pinocchio's. He feels he isn't treated like a real person by his fans or by the media because of his fame, and this comes out especially when he says,
"Anyone that sees you frowning, say you ought to laugh. You ought to laugh."
Here's the answer to one of our questions. Many critics of Kanye argued that the old Kanye was less dark and more happy and smiled more, and that made his music less dark and serious, and because of that it was better. While it's up to opinion whether his pre-808s and Heartbreak albums were much better than his ones after or not, Kanye makes it clear that his mood changed because he's in pain from his mother's death and his breakup, and he needs to cry, or in his case, put out those emotions in music to feel better. People who look at the initial image of Kanye, for which we could go back to the symbolism of the shadow, wouldn't be able to see his face and see that he's crying, so his music is his only form of expression, in both the staging and in real life. He's not being treated as a real person, a person that goes through hard experiences and needs to let out his emotions. Instead, he's being looked at through his music, and the people who hate on his music for being more dark are like these people who see him crying and instead of reaching out to help, tell him he should laugh because they like him better that way. Now let's move on to the freestyle, which has a lot more to analyze in it because he came up with it at the time. Because of that, you'll notice it's a less subtle response to everything. He starts it all off by highlighting the excessive control of the industry over all of his actions, personifying the industry, telling him don't miss, as if to say don't make the wrong move. In the same verses, he outlines what will happen to him if he does step out of line and move into his real self.
Amazon, you gotta do it like this, and move your other leg like this, and don't get nobody pissed. Hey nigga, don't miss, because if you miss one step, we gon' treat you like this. We gon' talk shit about you like this. We gon' beat you up like this. We gon' say that people don't like you. We gon' try to make the whole world hate you. Don't never say what everybody else is thinking. Nigga, don't miss. Walk perfectly in this town.
He has to walk perfectly, stay in his shape, and not say what's on his mind to please the industry and the media. But this staying in line is what keeps him from being real and being happy. This explains why he doesn't care about who will talk and what they'll say when he steps out of line and acts out in public. If he does what he wants to do all the time, he gets to break free from the controlled cast that the industry puts him in. The same idea is more specifically and vividly described when he says,
"Can you imagine how many times they told me I never work in this town again? But now 2 nights at the Hollywood Bowl sold out. Hey, don't let them bring it down, don't let them bring it down."
He makes clear here that the industry and the media try to scare him away from breaking free by claiming that if he steps out of line, he won't work again, which is apparent because of how every time Kanye acts out and makes headlines, there are more headlines asking if his career is over. But as he says so clearly here, they're all just empty threats, because the world loves his true self and his music that conveys his true self, so he doesn't have to be in line, because as long as he sticks to himself, he could act out and still sell out 2 nights shows at the Hollywood Bowl. He could succeed and reach new heights. Finally, he ends by saying,
They told me, you better not show your face in public, boy. They told me, better stand still, Emmett Till, better stand still, Emmett Till. They told me, 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 they told me. And I, like Pinocchio, they must have lied, 'cause I feel so much love tonight. They must have lied, 'cause I feel so much love tonight. Oh, they must have lied, 'cause I feel so much love tonight. They must have lied, 'cause I feel so much love tonight.
I'll break down this part to conclude. He reiterates that they made him threats and that he thought he had to follow all the rules. He gets more specific though, saying they told him, better stand still, Emmett Till. Emmett Till is a key figure in the civil rights movement, a 14-year-old African American who was lynched after flirting with a white woman. The people who lynched him were acquitted of any murder charges, and this photograph of his mutilated face became one of the most influential and popular photographs of the time. Kanye mentioning him here could have 2 different meanings. It could just be an homage to this line in his very first song, Through the Wire, which he rapped after getting into a car accident and having his mouth wired shut.
And just imagine how my girl feel on the plane, scared as hell that I got look like Emmett Till.
Or this line could be referring to the backlash he received after getting into a relationship with Kim Kardashian. Some of the backlash was people accusing him of betraying the black community by marrying a white woman, and this might be a stretch, but this line could be Kanye dismissing this backlash as more critics just telling him to stay in line and not do what he wants to do or go after what he loves, comparing them to the racists of the mid-20th century. But besides that point, this performance ends really powerfully, as he claims they lied to him and his threats were empty because, despite his actions, his fans will still love him and are there for him. This love makes its way into the performance, as he's seen walking away from the white staircase, stepping out of line, and moving erratically and forcefully trying to break out of the cast. This performance reveals that Kanye realized he doesn't have to keep himself in this position where he's trying to please everyone and not to offend anyone. Instead, he could just do what he wants to do and focus on his art and his influence. That realization, that change of heart, is the difference between the old Kanye and the new Kanye.